This is Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is another one of those games where the publisher, Warner Brothers, literally did not want to do any sort of codes or anything like that. So we were gifted it by buyer's remorse, who may or may not be filet on the channel, and that's why we're covering it at this point. And, like, honestly, I kind of wish I hadn't played it. There's a growing collection of individuals out there where apparently the word on the street is that this game isn't as bad as people say it is. It is. It's pretty horrendous. It's just not really worth your time. And we'll dive into that today in something that I would say is basically like a half-rate kind of crackdown. It's kind of like Sunset Overdrive, but crappy. It's sort of like the movement of Spider-Man, but not as good or as fun. And it's just like a combination of other games that are just better than this one. And you don't do as many repetitive tasks in those other games as you do in this one. So what are we getting here? It's a dynamic 4K resolution. It's more like 1700p a lot of the time as an average. It's 60 FPS, but there are performance drops and hiccups. And it seems more and more when you do multiplayer stuff that is kind of the situation on that one. Wow, I got actually downed. That's kind of wild. So yeah, it's a game where you play as the Suicide Squad and you are attempting to kill the Justice League. Brainiac has come in, they've all been corrupted and taken over, and yeah, literally there's no surprises here. You literally are killing the Justice League over the course of I want to say it's like an 8-9 hour main game, but the story is kind of like nonsensical. Like sometimes there's glimpses of like an interesting story, and then a lot of it is just doing this repetitive cannon fodder stuff over and over again until it eventually ends, but it doesn't really end because it goes into an endgame sequence, so it's like over and the credits roll, but like it's not really a story that feels as though it's had any sort of like conclusion to it, if that makes any sense. It just seems like mindless, never-ending kind of chaotic action. Wait, that crystal came back? I literally just destroyed it like half a second ago, didn't I? That's so weird. Maybe it's another crystal I'm thinking of. So yeah, a lot of people say the end game is really when the fun begins, and I kind of disagree too, because it's just sort of more repetitive crap that you've already done while doing the main game. You just do it at the beat of like thematically changed stuff. And we're doing this at a time where there's like the Joker season, so I'm assuming they'll get like one more season before they kind of like give up on this game. I'm kind of assuming. Which I know doesn't sound the best, but like, I mean, come on, I'm just kind of being realistic with this one. It's just not very fun. It's incredibly boring. It's not very enjoyable. I didn't like it. Honestly, it was like, the tutorial was like an hour and a half or something, and it never really got any better. There were some slightly more interesting points to this game, but it never really got, again, better or more interesting or more fun. When there were story segments, it was kind of neat, but the story segments were sort of brief, and you get these like really awkward scenarios where you're basically like, it's a co-op game, but then sometimes you have to play each individual character by themselves for a bit, and like again, like a lot of the game just lacks cohesion or really like focus, and I don't know. I think of the Suicide Squad as like a funny, kind of quirky team of misfits. And like, I think it tries to do that, and then tonally I just wasn't super into what it was going on with. And like I said, I really didn't like this one. I think it's genuinely terrible. And it's not terrible in a sense of like, oh, this doesn't work or whatnot. Like, there's a couple bugs, but nothing that's like detrimental or anything like that. And you know what? Like, visually, it actually looks pretty good. It's like a current gen game. It's colorful, it's pulpy, it's got a lot going on in it. It's just, again, not very good. Like, it's hard to be a game that I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But, like, not terrible in the sense of it having, like, performance issues. Like, even, like, the character models look great. I don't like the costume design in this game. I think it's quite horrendous, particularly, like, the Wonder Woman selection of outfits and some of the unlockable... Well, there's not really any unlockable stuff, but some of the DLC stuff and that kind of looks terrible. And yeah, I'm not huge on the outfits, but, like, from a texturing standpoint, an aesthetic standpoint, like, everything outside of how they look, which I guess fits into aesthetics, kind of. Outside of everything of how they're designed, I think they're actually, like, pretty well detailed, and actually, they did put a lot of effort into creating the design and everything like that. Like, it's actually, like, a pretty good current gen looking game. And, you know, it's meant for cooperative play, which is even more impressive. I mean, if you can get anyone. They've got this, like, weird setup where it's, like, kind of a real pain to, like, invite people or get people to join. I never had a single player join my campaign or any other extra stuff I did. Outside of, like, having somebody be invited to play. Just want to be clear about that. So, like, matchmaking-wise, nobody else joined in. But, like, you know, I was able to invite someone to have them play. And it was a little bit more fun together, I guess. Other than that, you're doing AI stuff where the AI doesn't really... Like, they're there, but they don't really do anything. Like, they're good for reviving you, I guess. And it's just, like, you don't really feel like a team outside of doing the cutscenes. And each character is kind of different, but also kind of, like, the same. You know, like Harley Quinn, obviously you've been seeing, is this character. And this is all in the Arkhamverse, even though it doesn't feel like it in the slightest, and tonally it doesn't match at all, and none of it really makes any sense. Oh, and there's a whole RPG section. We'll get to that after. Yeah, because it's kind of a little nonsensical. Cannot be equipped. Yeah, it's just useless, isn't it? And then we have Boomerang. And each character, they have their own skill trees, and then there's this annoying tech lady thing that's kind of there, and yeah, it's a whole thing. And this has got like a battle pass with really crappy armor and stuff you can earn, and there's like a weird loadout, and it's just nonsensical like garbage you get a lot of the time, and the guns aren't very fun, and I don't know, this game's terrible. Anyways, yeah, Captain Boomerang, he's in the game. Kind of funny, you know, he's got his style, his boomerang. They all kind of move slightly different, but all kind of move and functionally kind of perform the same. They just have guns. King Shark, who's pretty cool. I always like King Shark, but I don't know in this one. And then Deadshot, where it's constantly, it's like, my daughter! And it's like, yeah, we get it, dude. We get it. Your only character trait is your daughter. That's literally the only character trait that guy has in this game. Is just whining about his daughter. And his weird beef with Green Lantern, but I'm assuming Green Lantern put him in somewhere or something. I don't know. It's an open world game, but like, it doesn't really feel very distinct. Like, there's different areas, but it's just like kinda, I don't know. I don't know. It's you can't really get like a feel. Like, there's different like areas to the open world, but you don't effectively feel as though you traverse it in a way that like makes you care or be interested in it, because it's Metropolis, and it's just kind of like 99% of the population's gone, the rest has been taken. But then Lois Lane is doing her recordings where she's like, you gotta get out of the city, everyone's dead, they're all dying, and it's just like it's like a very soulless open world. It feels like Sunset Overdrive, but they suck the fun and the life out of it. That's literally the aesthetic and the design of like the open world exploration and stuff like that. It's like, it's a weird game. Honestly, that's the biggest thing for me. This is just a weird game. I could see some having fun with like the quick, repetitive whatever style that's present here. You know, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and maybe some people like the flashy style, and it feels like such a lackluster, repetitive, like sort of like slop, and it's disappointing. Like it's a complete waste of talent of the studio. And as I said, it's really hard for a game to be genuinely terrible and still like function well, because that's like a base kind of thing for me. Is when I say a bad game is a bad game, it's usually because said bad game has a lot of like technical problems. That's like it doesn't work. It's like, yeah, there's bugs and there's stuff where like AIs don't, like they vanish, and there's other things, and some stuff just doesn't work fully properly, but you know, it all runs. There's no like big issues or crashes, or so it's really hard for me to put this in like the category of like, wow, this is an awful game, without the technical hurdles kind of being a part of that. But like seriously, this is just not worth your time. Like we have so many better experiences in gaming where you can enjoy so many better things than to see this sort of thing where it's like they just kind of like desecrate the entire like universe. Like they had the Arkhamverse, which could have been expanded upon to be the coolest grim kind of universe of like superhero stuff, and this game just absolutely just ruins it. Like every hero character is ruined. Batman from the Arkhamverse is ruined, and it's just it's kind of like a tragedy. Like it really expects you to also know who the characters are too, like the Justice League. They're like, oh, you know Batman and stuff like that. So like I'm thinking from like an outside perspective, if you have no idea who these characters are, you'd probably just be like, well, why does it matter that we're killing these people and stuff? And it's like, okay, I digress. It's like there's glimpses of an interesting story there. There's glimpses of interesting gameplay. But like for me, I'm racing towards the point of being able to uninstall this game and never having to play it again. Until there's, I don't know, some kind of update or re-release thing down the line or something. I don't know. I always get dragged back into these games, let's be real here. I never escape some of these games as much as I want to. But it's just like, with so many options out there, I don't know why you would be wasting your time with this. And it's like, you know what? If you like the gameplay here, like if you find this interesting, the post-game stuff, the endgame stuff, which is what we're basically doing here, kind of offers a lot of gameplay. Like you can just sit here and endlessly grind doing the same thing over and over again. And getting like some gear and stuff like that. But okay, so to talk about like the gear system and the RPG elements of it, I literally couldn't even feel the leveling in this game. I couldn't feel the weapons that I was getting. I just kind of been stuck with these pistols the whole time because they seem to be the best items I can get. Like comparison to like assault rifles and stuff is just literally SMGs, and it's like I don't know. I don't know. And there's these incursions is the big end game. That's what we're doing. We incurge and we go somewhere else. I don't know, that's a word. And you're having to do it again. So, like, the Suicide Squad is an interesting property. It's got intriguing characters. It's got a cool concept. And they try, but they just... I don't know. I will give them props for having a streamer mode, though. I always appreciate that as someone that does content, so like, you know, that's cool. That's a benefit. If you're in the niche of people that does, you know, content for these games, and, you know, like the audio and stuff is kind of fine in that regard too, which is nice. But like, it's a game that is aesthetically pleasing, aside from the terrible character costumes and the repetitive enemies that you fight over and over again. But like, you know, this is definitely a current gen looking game, you know, aside from some technical issues that seem to pop up more like frame rate wise and that when you're finished the main game and you go to the post game, like it's not bad. Like that's okay, and it like technically runs fine. It's just the gameplay isn't fun. It's not enjoyable. It's boring. For the first few hours, I was just kind of sitting there lazily meleeing with the club over and over again, and you know, it gets a little bit more engaging and complicated as you kind of level, and you know, you can go and you can do the different characters, but it's just like, it's a game that takes a lot of time for it to really kind of kick off in terms of gameplay, and by the time an interesting story is developing and being worked on and, you know, being played, it's like it abruptly ends and kind of gets thrown away for an endgame scenario. To the point where I'm kind of like, I don't think they actually cared about narrative at all in this game. And it really feels like a lot of this is just kind of random stuff, to the point where they like, I think they assumed, for whatever reason, that they had a group of people that would sit here and play this endlessly and want to grind battle pass. Like it's an unearned live service game where I think they just assumed, because it was DC, that people were just gonna sit here and just waste hours grinding this mundane, monotonous, like repetitive sludge. It's like, what did I say for Redfall? It's a mundane exercise in insanity. It's just I don't understand why this game exists as it does. It just, like, it must have been some kind of weird combination nightmare of like, this is just the game we're making, and you know, it's just deal with it and stuff. And it's just like, it's a bit of a shame and a complete waste of, in my opinion, talent that was behind so many great games back in the day, you know, like Rocksteady and stuff. And it just feels like a complete fall from grace, and it's like, I don't even know how many people are going to be interested in this game or even anything like that. And a lot of the time it's kind of like, it's not a big deal if I don't necessarily get like access to something. Like, it's great when I do, obviously, so I can cover it and show it, and I get a lot of stuff, obviously. But it's like, when a company goes this far out of their way multiple times when chatting with them not to have you like cover something like this, you do wonder why, and then you find it kind of intriguing when you do get to play it, and you kind of go, yeah, no, it makes sense. No, I really get it. It's just, it's just not a good game, you know? I wish it was. I wish it was more intriguing. I wish there was more to this game. I wish it had more depth. But really, like, when you finish the story, which is incredibly lackluster, you just sit here and do the same things over and over and over again. And I'm trying to show you different stuff, and it's like, it looks clean, it looks like colorful candy, it looks like a cool world that captures these characters, and it just, oh, I don't want to do any of these terrible car escort missions. Okay, we'll do it. It just never gets better, and it's just at a point where it's not like, I have no desire to play more of this or grind any of it or do any other seasons. I just want to literally pretend that I didn't play this game and just move on. It'll be one of those ones where I kind of throw it in my like notch belt. It's like in line with, say, like Redfall or Gollum or Kong. It just, like, it runs better than those, but it, to me, is just like an absolute pitiful tragedy of a game. Like, it's just, like, it's not even being hyperbole or anything. It's just bad. It's just boring. It's just not engaging. It's not something I would recommend to anyone. I would find it very hard to, like, know what type of player this would be for, and I know I've heard some people say they kind of like this game, and it's like, that's cool and all and great for you, and I don't see this one lasting, and I want to get away from it as soon as possible because I think it's genuinely just awful. Just terrible.